We continue our reading of Lest We Forget by author George R. Knight. Today's reading, January 4. An unlikely candidate for ministry. I tell you the truth, no one can see the kingdom of God unless he is born again. John 3:3. It was in the hopeful and expectant exuberance of the Second Great Awakening that we discover what appeared to be a rather hopeless candidate for ministry. In fact, in his 20s, William Miller, born in 1782, was more interested in making fun of preachers than in emulating them. In particular, he found the ones of his own family to be especially good targets for that brand of fun, those favored, quote-unquote, by such activity included his grandfather, Phelps, a Baptist minister, and his uncle, Elihu Miller, of the Lowhampton Baptist Church. Miller's mimicking of his grandfather's and uncle's devotional peculiarities afforded great entertainment for his skeptical associates. He imitated with ludicrous gravity his relatives' words, tones of voice, gestures, fervency, and even the grief they might manifest for such as himself. Beyond entertainment for his friends, such exhibitions functioned as a statement of who young Miller was. Like other young people in times of rapid cultural transition, Miller had gone through his own identity crisis. Part of his rebellion against his family had undoubtedly been an aspect of the perennial struggle of adolescents to discern who they are in contradistinction to their parents. That struggle, unfortunately, is equally hard on both parents and adolescents. Such was the case of William's deeply religious mother, who knew of his antics but found them anything but funny. To her, the actions of her eldest son were the bitterness of death. William, however, hadn't always been a religious rebel. In his earliest years, he had been intensely and even painfully devout. The first page of his diary, which he began to keep in his teens, contained the statement, quote, "I was early taught to pray the Lord," end quote. Being the only descriptive statement about himself in the diary's introduction, it must have seemed important to him as a distinguishing characteristic. But it was not to last. In early adulthood, Miller left Christianity and became an aggressive and skeptical deist who would lampoon not only his grandfather, but Christianity itself. But old Grandpa Phelps never gave up on him. "Don't afflict yourself too deeply about William," he consoled his mother. "There is something for him to do yet in the cause of God." And so there was. But unfortunately for her, it would take time for that prophecy to reach fulfillment. Phelps never stopped praying for his children and grandchildren. Here is something important for those of us who live in the 21st century. This concludes our reading today of Lest We Forget.